Where to Hunt Podcast. It's okay.
Hi, I'm Dan Small, host of Outdoor Wisconsin, and I listen to Where to Hunt.
Nah, it's okay.
I'm Kurt Geyer with Working Class Bow Hunter. I listen to Where to Hunt Podcast, and it's decent.
It's all right.
Hey, this is Bud Fisher with Catching Deers, and I think the Where to Hunt podcast is all right.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Where to Hunt Podcast, the podcast that connects public land hunting enthusiasts, aka the okayest podcast in the Midwest. I'm Eric.
And I'm Greg.
What up? Real quick about the okayest hunter. This is the okayest hunter podcast studio. If you see our post from Instagram, it'll literally say okayest hunter podcast studio. If you want to save 10% of their stuff, their swag, their hats, their shirts, whatever, you can enter code W2H podcast for 10% off. Head on over to okayesthunter.com. Boom. That felt good. That was smooth. Almost as smooth as this whiskey over here I just took a sip of. I think if I could just, look, I'm not an alcoholic by any stretch, but I feel like if I could have this during the workday, it would be a great day.
I'm sure it would. You'd have a great nap after it too.
I'm not saying like ride the wave hardcore. I'm just saying if I could have a couple sips here and there, you know, when I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this or whatever, it would just be, well, I'll just take a sip of this and
That could
back
lead
on the
to
horse.
It could lead to a problem though.
It would be a problem. No kidding. But that's why we like doing this podcast. We can do it. We're OFP. We're own effing program. We can do whatever we want.
That's right.
Talking to the El Presidentes here.
Right.
What else we got, Greg? How you doing?
All right.
I got to produce some extra podcasts this week.
Yeah, it sounds like it. We just came back from Stevens Point over at Blackhawk Archers.
Yep, Blackhawk Archers.
Nice little archery club up near Stevens Point.
Yeah, just I think a little east of Stevens Point. I forget the specific town.
Yep.
But I mean,
Paloma.
right in there. It was cool. It was a beautiful course.
Yeah, had a lot of nice changes in terrain features. You were shooting uphill, downhill, elevated, you know, kind of like a tree stand setting or more like a box blind, but it was pretty cool.
It was good. It was a good confidence builder. Also flung some arrows the wrong way as the okayest hunters that we are. You were right there with me on some of them.
Yeah. Yep.
I know one of your arrows hit the dirt.
I chucked one in the dirt.
I stuck a pine tree and an antler.
And dirt.
And dirt. I got to cover my bases, you know. Yeah. You got to know where, you know, your failure points are so you can reel back in. You got to really test the limits of your okayestness.
Yeah, we did that.
We did. So that was good. And then came back home and tried to catch up, unpack all of this podcast gear. I'd never had packed it up before, so that was a new experience. And here we are. We're back at it now.
Yeah.
So I guess we got some ads. Let's do this one.
You're at work, in a tree stand, or simply waking up. It's important to be alert, and there's no better way to get there than with Backwoods Grind Coffee. Ground fresh for every order, delivered straight to your door. Backwoods Grind Coffee. Take a look at your feet. Are you wearing Gum Leaf USA boots? If you said no, you gotta reevaluate some things. Each pair is handmade and tested to take over 1 million flexes. These boots will take just about anything you can throw at them. Use promo code W2H2020 for 10% off your final purchase at gumleafusa.com.
All right, so I know I don't have a discount code in there,
So you better
but it's okay because then people are like, wait, what is it? Then someone
you
told me
better
the other
grab
day.
yourself and impersonate that voice and
I'll
start
just slop it on.
slopping it on there.
Backwoodsgrind.com, W2H podcast for 10% off. All right, you happy?
I'm happy.
Okay, it's good stuff. Lots of
great
beautiful
stuff.
notes of chocolate and cinnamon
Deliciousness.
and yeah, it's great. And you got the Vector custom shop.
Yeah, we still don't have
flung
anything canned for that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I like a canned.
All right.
We should go back and forth. But I flung some of those this weekend.
Yeah. So if you're looking to fling some new arrows, custom built to your specification, look no further than Vector Custom Shop. Head on over to vectorcustomshop.com. You can do a test pack of 2 arrows built however you want, different spines, different weights, and see which one flies best for you. And then after you figure out what you want, you can order up a half dozen or a dozen from vectorcustomshop.com. And when you're going to check out, enter code WHERE2HUNT, and that'll save you 10% off anything off of vectorcustomshop.com's website.
They're everywhere. I mean, Jake Bush is using them. Sam Soult uses them. Zach Fehrenbaugh's using them. Who else that we know of?
Bo Martonic.
Okay.
East Meets West podcast.
A lot of people are using them.
Yeah, there's more and more. So
there's probably more than
product.
that. Yeah.
Great product, and they stand behind it, and they take care of their customers well.
It's a thick-walled micro shaft.
Yeah.
There might be one other on the market like theirs, but I can't remember.
There's probably a few. There's some bigger companies that just came out with some stuff this year. So, but I don't know. I really like these arrows. I'm very happy with them. I've built 3 different sets now, different weights, and I like to tinker. So that's what I've been doing.
Tinkerbell Greg. All right.
Don't put that bell crap on the end.
Tinkerbell Greg.
Sad.
So on the line with us, we were going to have Cody and Ryan, a.k.a. Homey, from Whitetail Legacy Podcast. Cody got stuck at work, so we got Ryan, a.k.a. Homey. What's up, dude?
What's up, homie?
What's going on, man?
We're just chilling over here. I'm drinking some whiskey, and you're drinking a PBR over there, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Did you crack a beer? I know you just walked in the door over there.
No, I haven't yet. Getting kind of hydrated from my day at work, so gonna have a couple before bed, though.
There you go.
Yeah, I suppose you probably need to put something real in your system after a hard day of work. Do you guys work on the railroad? Am I right about that?
Yeah, we worked there since March of 2014. That's our gig, and it takes up a lot of time, man. You don't know, just like tonight, you don't know what time you're going to get off, and some days are easy, but most days are hard, and it's a grind, man.
Physical labor, huh? I mean, and you just got to work till, like, you get to a certain point. Like, what constitutes the workday ending?
Well, today, like, we had a bigger project. We put in a new switch to go from one track to the next track, and that's about as big of a deal as it gets. But mostly, especially with this year, everything being all jacked up, we've kind of had more time off. At least I have, and it kind of also depends on your position. Sometimes I'm track inspecting, sometimes I'm welding, sometimes I'm in charge of 3 to 4 guys, and we're out repairing the track. So you get to move around if you have enough seniority, and you're not just stuck doing the same thing every day, which is something that I really like about it.
Nice. Is that how you guys met? Was on the job, or do you guys know each other before that?
So I was at the hiring event, and Cody walks in, and there's like 52 guys, one of the biggest hiring class that our company had ever had at that point. And I just kind of wore my camo hat in, not being fancy or anything. And Cody's trying to find a place to sit, and he's like, "Oh shit, I see a guy with a camo hat on. It's probably a pretty solid dude." So luckily enough, there was a chair open next to me, and he pulled up a chair, and we just kind of started shooting the shit. And next thing you know, like, we go home that weekend after the first week of class, and we already knew that each other liked hunting and everything. And I'm taking him the back roads to get back home, because in between where we live and where the hiring event was my hunting ground. So I'd kind of, been patrolling the back roads there for quite a few years, and I was taking him around and, showing him some stuff. And we ended up seeing, a couple groups of, 30 to 40 deer. And actually at the end of the 3 weeks of training, I invited him out to my place to come shed hunting, because Cody is just an absolute shed hunting fanatic. And he scooped one off the piece, and I come up empty-handed. So he's definitely got an eye for that.
And the rest is history. So let's back up a little
Yeah.
bit. I jumped ahead just based on where we're at, but tell us about the Whitetail Legacy Podcast. You know, for our audience that may haven't discovered you guys just yet, you're making waves, and you know, I know a little bit more about your approach, and I love it. You're one of the few other hunting podcasts that I will listen to and thoroughly enjoy. So tell us a little bit about, you know, the why and the how and the what you guys got going on.
I appreciate you saying that, Eric. And I think by making waves, what you mean is, you know, we're just sending it off the deep end. We don't really have a script or anything, but one of our main goals is to just have normal guys on. You know, we had you on, and, you know, it's just normal guys like meeting Cody. And, you know, we just want guys on there that you can literally meet at a convention or something, and you know, next thing you know, you've been talking to a stranger for 30 minutes about deer hunting. And that was just kind of our main focus, and that's something that we really wanted, and it's kind of blossomed into the show we have now. And trust me, at the beginning, you know, we thought it was going to be a lot easier to, you know, carry a show, and you know, listening to a podcast, you think like, oh, that's not that hard, but when you get in there and you're in the moment, and you know, the lights on and you're trying to fill out the show, like it takes a while to get a groove. And you know, when we're at like 40 some episodes, you would think, okay, yeah, that sounded pretty good, and then you'd get to 65 or 70 and you're like, man, them 41s are trash. And then you're at 85 and you're like, man, 63 was trash. You know, it's
Kind of going
always
phases.
trying to
You're
get
right.
better in the moment.
Yep.
Well, and you're growing as you go.
Just trying to get better.
Hey, what's the saying?
Yeah,
You're fixing the plane as you
know,
fly it, right?
What's that?
I think the saying is you fix the plane as you fly it.
Yeah. So, you know, and it just comes with time and doing it. And we've got some really great followers and people that tune in each week and give us some feedback about what they like and some ideas of what they want to hear. So we greatly appreciate that, and we welcome that. And that's just kind of where we're at now with the legacy.
I love it. So you guys met at a job fair, getting put on the railroad, and then decided to spin up a podcast together. Who's like the technical? Are you guys both technical? Because it's not like, it's a lot easier these days than maybe it was, you know, a decade ago. But are you guys navigating that part pretty well too?
In the beginning, it was very rough. Like it took us, you know, probably an hour to get set up in GarageBand, and you know, it doesn't help when you're half lit trying to figure it out for the, you know, like the third time, and you're like, man, we had it one time. And you know, it's been a lot of fun just going through the growing pains with Cody, because you know, he's such a positive guy, and that's really rubbed off on me. And it's just, you know, once you get something figured out, then you know, like, okay, we got through that hurdle. And then Cody's always thinking of different things to do and try. And it seems like whenever we get a groove, it'd be like 2 months, then boom, you know, he wants to try something else, which is good. We always like a good challenge. But as far as like the technical side goes, I've always kind of had like a little edge for technology and computers, and, you know, tinker with stuff like that. But just going into like making a show, it was something that I had never really done, and, you know, trying to make cover art and downloading different apps and stuff. So that's kind of who's leading the technical side of the podcast, I guess. But if you want to get technical about deer hunting, Cody's the guy. He's got that covered, and I leave all that up to him.
Yeah, some of his photos, I think the one we shared this morning too, I was just browsing through his stuff. I was like looking at both your stuff, and you know, the ones on the site, the pixelation was too much. So I didn't use those ones, but I was like, man, these are some thick main beams. These are some big racks, man. I was like, holy crap. He's like, out of us two, that's the Greg in the room, you know, at least compared to me. You know, if I move my head back for those watching, you can see my dinky little 7-pointer. If you look far off on the table, you can see my dinky 6-pointer. And if you look at the other spot, you see a 2-pointer. That's why I'm like the okayest hunter of the podcast. So I'm definitely not the big buck slayer. I certainly put in enough effort and try. I just come up short most times of the year. I don't know. It is what it is. We're learning and trying to put in more time and make smarter use of our time outdoors. But I think you guys, you know, like what you had mentioned earlier about talking to the everyday hunter, the guy that you can meet at a trade show and talk to you for 45 minutes without realizing that time had gone by. That's what's noticeable. I almost wonder, like, that's got to be the most heavy lifting insofar as doing the work to find those people, because they're not known. You kind of got to dig. How do you guys, without giving away your secret stuff, and maybe you don't have to answer me, but like, how do you do that?
Just like you said, man, it's putting in the time. Cody does a lot of that. And, you know, it's really a props to him for being able to do that, because, you know, I'll try to, you know, fill in the gaps when needed, but Cody mostly handles the scheduling and the guests, and I'm, you know, handling the actual uploading and, you know, the title, the description, everything of that sort. And Cody's out there putting in his time and searching deep in the hashtags, or, you know, looking at YouTube videos or channels, and seeing somebody that piques his interest of, you know, somebody who knows what they're doing. Half the time we don't, but we just try to have somebody on there who we feel like can bring the value to the audience. And it just takes a lot of time. I know it takes a lot of time, because I've tried it some, and Cody always just seems to find that golden nugget, man.
It is. It's a lot of back and forth. It's like you gotta, you know, engage with someone, and they're a complete stranger. Hey, do you want to be on this podcast? They may or may not get back to you. If they do, then it's like, what works for you? You got to schedule it. It's just, it's a rigmarole. And then you finally land it. Then you got to record it. Then you got to produce it. Then you got to I mean, you just mentioned all this stuff. So you guys got a good system going for yourselves. And you guys have a whole nother component to the show. The Legend of the Woods. Tell me about that.
So, you know, obviously, the industry is filled with, you know, advertising of big deer, and social media is filled with the giant bucks. And I'm glad to see you guys are coming around with the okayest hunters, slipping in there, showing off the basket racks and the spike bucks, because there's definitely a place for that.
Yep.
But the Legend of the Woods is a kind of a sub-series of the main show, if you want to call it that. We have 23 or 24 of them out right now, and they are once-in-a-lifetime caliber deer, whether that's, you know, a 160-inch in Michigan, or, you know, a 203, or we even had a 230 come out of Ohio on there. And this is another one of Cody's ideas. He's like, man, what if we just had episodes and the guy just came on and told his deer story, but it was like a absolute mega giant. And I was like, well, yeah, you know, that's a great idea. And it's just, you got to go out there and find them guys, and then you got to reach out and, you know, everything that you already said. But Legend of the Woods series is definitely something that people like to hear. It's not just, you know, totally tactic driven or anything like that. You know, we do ask questions of like, you know, what do you think was the main thing that helps you seal the deal and this and that, just because there might be some oddball stuff, and there has been. But, you know, most of the time it's people just putting their ass in a seat and hunting. And one thing that I've noticed about these Legend of the Woods series is these guys, these hunters, are seeing these once-in-a-lifetime deer, you know, on multiple occasions. And that's just something that Cody and I haven't been able to do very many times, is, you know, see a buck 2 or 3 times and then really make a move. Most of the time that we're making a move, it's off of trail camera data, or, you know, something like that, a wind shift. So it's cool to hear these stories and these people getting to film and see these absolute monster deer multiple times. And we had one deer come out of Illinois, and the guy, I don't know how far the deer was when he shot, but he had missed on his first shot, and he had hit that deer right in the antler. And, you know, he's like, oh man, you know, there's been a shot. And then next thing you know, the deer bumps out about 12 more yards, and he smokes him. So there's some great stories in that, you know, mini series, and the audience just seems to really enjoy them.
Dude, it's stories are powerful. They're engaging. It's how we process a lot of the information that comes at us. we do a segment similar, and we'll ask you at the end of this your most memorable hunt. It's nothing. It's not. It's very. It's similar to what you guys are doing, but it's different, right? Because it's not, the slob of a buck where it's that once in a lifetime, which is a great concept. Ours is a bit different. It's just people. Maybe it's like their kid finally got one, or whatever the memory is, and then we film score it. So we got a guy that like helps put some production behind the audio content with like sound effects and cinematic undertones and stuff. Try to bring it to life a little bit for people, but. There's not too many folks surprisingly doing, story-based shows. I think the Hunt series, I forget what they're called. I think they're just called the Rise Hunt. They just started doing something like that, memorable hunts. I think between the three of us, we're the only ones that I'm aware of.
Yeah, shout out to the Rise too, man. Those are some great guys. We've been able to meet up with them the last couple years at ATA, and just a great group of guys. And they're actually one of the few teams also that are putting out weekly or bi-weekly content throughout the season. So you get to see their season unfold as you go through your deer season. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the other guys that are doing that with Hunting Public, right? Where they're launching it from tents and shit.
Yeah,
it's really cool when you can see what's going on the season you're hunting in rather than looking a year back. Like the Whitetail Adrenaline guys, you buy their DVD in fall and it's from last year, which is super cool because it gets you all jacked up, but it's really cool when you can follow along in season. And then you can look at the years past and follow the same trajectory, and you can still get good nuggets there too. But things are just better when they're fresh sometimes, unless it's a bottle of scotch.
Yeah, for sure. Cody and I have bounced the idea back and forth this year of trying we did a blog last year of our public land journal, and it was just kind of recapping each week of us hunting on public land and kind of what we've seen and kind of where we sat and what we were going in there intended to do, whether it was just kind of more of an observation sit to, X that area out, or if it was to go in there and scout and set up, or, we had a trail camera in the area or, something along those lines. And we wrote it out into written form, and this year we were thinking about maybe trying it through video form, just so it forces us to film more.
Yeah, filming's a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into that. That's one of the things why we're doing this podcast stuff. We're just going all in on podcast. I think we would love to do video, and maybe we'll tinker around with it. But some of the guys that are all in on video, the difference is pretty drastic. If you're just kind of tinkering with it, it's not the same as if you're all in, like the Hunting Public or Chase Nation's another good example, or the Rise Hunt. Like some of these guys are doing a really good job with that stuff because that's their primary focus, But some of the guys they can turn out pretty well.
Yes, they can, and I would say Last Breath TV, they're primarily video, and they've started a podcast, and they actually call it a hunt cast. And so, they got their hands full with that because Cody and I are doing the podcast, firsthand, and then we have some video stuff on the side, and it is very different, but it's also fun to see when you're packing in your camera gear for the 68th time that year, and you just don't want to take it, but you just never know what you're going to see out there or encounter. And once you get one good clip, that just kind of keeps the drive going. And then last year was kind of our first year of putting a production together, and we put out some videos, and we did the same thing this year. And when you really see a video fully encompassed and all that it took and all that nobody else sees, it's a different feeling than just producing a podcast, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, the different, I went to college for some of that stuff for web media production, and I got pretty deep into it for half a minute professionally, and because I know how much work that goes into it, it kind of keeps me an arm's length away from it. I don't really want to dive into that because it's a rabbit hole. I wish I could hire someone to just follow us around with a camera and then do the work.
Yeah, that would be nice. Just put a GoPro on a gimbal and let's rip.
Mm-hmm. You just follow me around. You do come into our studio every now and again. Come with us in the woods, and you do your thing, and we'll do ours. But so actually in the comments, Lance Brown said he doesn't have a good reception to call, but he wanted to ask a question in the comments. So I just want to tell him he sure can. In fact, anybody, like, the phone lines are hot. It's open. If you want to give a call in, 262-757-4122. For those that don't know, this is a live broadcast call-in show. So if you want to call in, feel free. Otherwise, you can always comment too. So what are you guys doing for this season? Like, from a hunting standpoint, what types of things are you doing to prep? What type of gear are you getting together? You know, do you guys have some go-tos, favorites, things that you're maybe not going to do from last year, et cetera?
So this year, our primary focus, and if anybody that's listening is listening to our show, this year we've kind of been a big proponent on just being more aggressive. And by being aggressive, you know, it's not just setting up on the edge of what you think is the stuff. It's actually going in and crashing in there and not being scared to bump the deer. Cody and I have always kind of hunted small parcels. So, you know, if you bump a deer, like, obviously that deer's probably going to leave. But, you know, with a couple of these public land spots that we get to hunt, I mean, they're very large, you know, hundreds and thousands of acres. So we're still getting adapted to having that room and to be able to chase the deer. And we're not fully accustomed to having other hunters, you know, out there not interfering, but, you know, out there amongst us. And, you know, if we aren't messing up the deer and learning from that experience of, you know, seeing him in his bed and getting out, you know, somebody else could do the same thing and learn from that and then end up being successful. And, you know, here we are just standing by the road, seeing everybody else drag a deer out. So first thing off the get-go is we're just going to try to be more aggressive. We have a couple plans to be hunting off the ground. And we actually hung a trail camera in a spot, and we were just sitting there kind of, you know, about 30 yards from it where we were going to hunt, and just kind of envisioning how it's going to play out. And I mean, it's pretty cool. And that's something that I've never really done, is hunted deer off the ground. So we had a couple chances to do it last year. It's just, we ended up getting scared and didn't do it. So that's kind of our main focus going into this year. As far as the prep goes this year,
Homie, real quick, this is not, it's an intentional interruption, I'm sorry, but I think I just realized Cody's been in here for 19 minutes and I just unmuted him. So Cody, if you're here, you're in. I'm not sure if he's still there or not.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry, dude. I didn't realize you were sitting there that long. I was like focused on the Facebook side. And
I was just listening in, man. It's good. It's good going.
I'm the worst podcaster ever. I guess I'm the okayest podcaster too. Jesus, guys, I'm sorry.
We already took that spot, so you can't fill that. But,
all right.
Yeah, I had a second here to step away from work, just about 100 yards from the tracks here. Huge apologies to you guys. I knew we had this set up a long time, and most of the time I'm on a job where I don't work this late, but this job I've been working this late a lot. So just apologies to you guys for saying that I'd be there, and I'm not. That's not the guy that I am. I try to make sure that that's, you know, if I say I'm going to do something, I try to nail it down. So
it's all good. It is all good. We're happy you're here. Better late than never, man. We won't judge.
Yeah, Homey's solid. He could carry this by himself.
He's like, man, I don't need you.
Yeah, I had no fear. I told Homey, I said, you're just gonna have to run it, man. So, and he said, all right. So, I got no fear with that. He and you know, going back to when you guys talked about who carries the podcast, Homey carries the podcast, guys, on the technical side. I'm not. Homey does a lot of that stuff, but pretty much all of it. You know what I mean? And he's rock solid.
He's just modest.
If I didn't have Homey, I wouldn't have a podcast because it would just be too much. You know what I mean? So
it's a lot of work. Hey, you know, one of the questions that came through, we'll see which one of you guys wants to answer this here. Lance just asked in the comments. He said, whether it's a terrain feature, as in funnels, ridges, edges, etc., or deer sign, scrapes, rubs, etc., what do you think has produced the most success? And by success, I mean kills or mature buck sightings.
I can take it. For us, the most success we have seen is we don't hunt a lot of sign. Early October, we're running off-trail cameras, and then during the rut, we're hunting doe bedding. Doe bedding's our bread and butter. I think Homey would agree with me. That's our go-to. A lot of people think it's weird that we target does on camera. Like if we have a camera that's just loaded with does all year, I get pretty jacked about it. You know what I mean? And we picked up a new piece this year, and there's one camera where I haven't had a buck on all year. It's just does, 30 a day, 30 pictures of does a day. And I know exactly what I'm going to be doing when I get a weird east wind during the rut. I'm going to be right there. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say. What do you got, Homey?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say exactly just about that. We run some cameras on some sign, and but really it's just them terrain features, whether it's water or a hillside, them deer walking just off the top of that ridge. That's something that I've keyed in on and had great success with.
That's interesting. I think I asked Greg this question like a couple weeks ago when we were jamming out by ourselves, and I've always had the thought. I think my dad has told me this. He's like, well, if the does are there, especially during the rut, like then the bucks will come, kind of thing. And I don't know what I don't know, and I'm really inquisitive and curious, and I like to ask good questions, and that's one that I don't understand, the holistic, full, big picture sometimes. And that's an area that I always kind of thought, well, where's the truth in this, and how do you kind of approach it? That's a great question, Lance, and your guys' answer is interesting because I haven't heard a lot of folks talk about it that way. And that's your bread and butter. That's different than what I'm hearing elsewhere.
I would say you hear a lot of guys, preach the sign and, going in and scouting and looking for it and setting up, short of it or whatever way the wind is. And, that's something Cody and I are still trying to learn. There's people that are deadly killing over it, and they know how to scout it and they know how to hunt it. And it's just something that we've tried and we just haven't punched a tag on it. But one thing that I do key in on as far as sign goes is, when the bucks are starting to hit them scrapes from mid to late October, I will key in on a scrape after a medium to light rain. If that buck's been in the area within the last few days, for him to come back and hit that scrape again after that rain stops, for him to refreshen that. So that's something that I've keyed in on and have also seen on trail camera.
So keying into weather. You got a thought on that, Greg? You look like you want to say something right now. You look like you want to punch me in the face right now. Just kidding. You know what? Why don't you do it? We watched Step Brothers twice in a row at the hotel over the weekend.
Yeah, well.
Oh, geez.
No, I mean, I've had experience seeing good buck movement around doe bedding areas when I hunted one particular piece of property. It was like a revolving door watching these bucks come cruise through this one spot. But the nicest buck I've killed so far has been me finding fresh sign, multiple freshened up scrapes, trees that are all rubbed up with sap actually running out of them because it was so fresh. I had another idea in mind to hunt another area. I was walking right through here and I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I think I'm not going to pass up on this. And that's when I decided to hang and hunt, hope for the best. And it paid off.
Nice.
It was outside of, there's doe bedding in that area, and there's also buck bedding in some of that area too.
There's so many different approaches. Like you and I last year, we tackled a piece that I've hunted, and we just went after a real tiny slice in the corner of the property that was, I think, by and large, overlooked.
Well, nobody was using it.
I think my dad said he hunted the same thing. He hunted for gun. During gun season, they could sit up on the ridge and hunt that whole area down. But during bow, no one was getting into it like we were. And, we saw some great sign. You had ears on some chasing activity.
Yep.
And I had eyes on a doe, and nothing ever else came through. I thought maybe a buck would be following her or something. But, so there's like overlooked areas. There's doe bedding. There's hunt the sign. There's hunt. What we did, hunt the turd. Yep. I thought that was kind of funny. But a fairly serious thing to consider, I guess, if it's a big fucking turd.
You got to go in there with both eyes open and be open to anything that could happen. You hunt what's kind of given to you. So if you have the inkling that the sign that you're seeing is truly good stuff, you should hunt it. But then again, if you have a stronger feeling of confidence to hunt a doe bedding area, then you're going to hunt that. It all goes in time of year too, you know. If it's the rut, you're definitely looking for doe bedding and where does are and expecting somebody to come cruising through.
Yep. Sniff those out and check them.
Yep.
Right. Great question.
I've killed good bucks off of sign, off of bedding. I got him on one 70 yards from bedding, killed him October 15th. I've killed one coming into scrapes. But for me, we focus our 2 weeks or whatever we have for vacation during the rut. So that's where we're putting, you know, the 15 days of all day sits, nonstop hunting. So we're focusing, of course, on doe bedding, but I'm not going to walk past fire hot sign in October for position B, you know, or position A, and when I'm not going to just walk past that when I could hunt that right there. But what I have seen throughout the years is during that time in that doe bedding is when we see the biggest deer, like where we see the absolute mega giants. That's when we're seeing them. We're not seeing them in October. They're not breaking daylight on cams in October. Of course, they're daylighting somewhere, and that's what we're trying to fix this year. We're trying to get in there and figure out where these deer are daylighting in October, or if they are at all. But I'm sure Homey can back me up. Consistently, since we've been hunting, doe bedding is where we see the biggest bucks in daylight.
And where are you guys out of again? I forget. Is it what state are you guys in?
We're just on the west central part of Illinois.
Oh yeah, you guys aren't far at all. I mean, it's pretty similar then. When does the Illinois season open up for bow?
October 1st.
Well, that's wow. So even though we're so close, ours opens up at September 12th this year. So we got a couple weeks ahead of you guys to get out there and suffer in the heat and mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Still green. Everything's just hot. Ugh. My daughter's birthday on the 12th. I won't be out that day. It's like the best possible excuse for me. Well, all right. So, Ryan, homie, I interrupted you to bring Cody on. I don't know if you remember. I don't remember where you're going. I lost my bookmark in my mind.
You had asked what we were going to change about going into the season, and I was talking about us wanting to be more aggressive and not being scared to run into a buck and set up and hunt.
So I've been running, I don't know if you guys heard, but we've been doing this thing called Tactic Talk, 50-minute like quick episodes. We've been talking to folks that are perceivably getting it done, putting big deer down around the country. And we've really been focusing just right now on early season tactics. And there's a common thread, well, too, that I've heard, and you know, I'm not one of the guys getting it done myself yet, but paying attention to hunting pressure and avoiding it is one big one. And then the other is early season. And I'm surprised to hear how many of these guys that are getting big deer on the ground are focused almost exclusively on the early season. And it sounds like it's because of the grace that they're given through like being aggressive, where you can bump these bucks and it's okay because they're still right kind of on a pattern. They haven't been pressured and you have a larger margin of error to kind of mess around and come back and still capitalize. Have you guys heard stuff like that from like, guests on your show or what you guys have been up to?
Yeah, we know a handful of guys who, we got a guy who lives in Tennessee right now. They're getting ready to kick off this weekend. Got a guy in Kentucky. They're kicking off shortly after the beginning of September. And, their summer scouting and prep and everything, the value that they can put on that information is way different than the value we can put on a buck and velvet, just because they get to hunt so much earlier and them deer are still on them patterns. For us, when that September 12th comes by and, 75% of the deer are probably shed, a whole lot changes. Like you're almost just wiping the slate clean damn near and kind of starting over. And then that's when we kind of start putting the emphasis back on last year's trail camera data and, just past hunting experience to know where to hunt or kind of where this deer is going to go, and if and when he shows back up.
What about you, Cody?
Yeah, I think, if our season started earlier, I think our whole game would be a little different. We put in a ton of work, but we're hanging cams right now for picks in October, picks in November. We would be way more apt to really run cams on field edges. We got one on one acorn flat, you know what I mean? But we're thinking of hunting it, cold front October. We're not thinking of hunting it, September, this weekend. I know a lot of people probably say that they'd have bucks down, but if I could hunt next weekend, I could have killed this one buck about 7 times. He's in the same field, daylight, over and over and over, and then we hunt him all season and don't even see him, and I'm glassing him 7 days straight. We had a buck called Sunshine early season. He daylighted like 18 days straight, didn't he, homie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Within 2
early
hours
season.
of the evening.
Yeah, 18 days straight on a mobile cam, daylight, 18 days straight, and we can do nothing. Homie ended up killing that deer in October on our food plot, but that we knew he was in the area, but we knew he was using that bedding area early, but without being able to go out there and get after him, the intel's kind of null and void for us. But the guys that can are super successful. Everybody that traveled down there to that velvet season, a ton of them are killing those bucks, and they're just going down there on a weekend and hunting some bean field, and getting lucky and killing these deer. So it would be a cool trip, and we would definitely have to learn a ton, because that's just there's a void in our game right there, something serious, because it's something that we don't do.
Seems like, that's oh man, there's just so much we could freaking talk about. The guys that are just, so one of my bosses, probably one of the crazier people I know, but also one of the smartest and hardest pressing people that force you out of your comfort zone in every aspect of life to make you do more. I remember when I got hired at this company, and I'll come full circle with this so it makes sense. He's like, well, our onboarding for new employees is, whatever, our probationary period is 3 months. But you can, if you work, 16 hours a day, you can hit that 3 months in half the time, right? And if you're putting in all that time, you're learning more too. So it's doubly compounding. You're covering that ground faster. You're putting in more time, more work. You're learning more a lot quicker, and you're putting yourself in a stronger position for success. So some of these guys and gals that are doing like out-of-state hunts and just hunting the whole entire season, where they're getting the early season and they're learning those tactics from different terrain, different areas, and then they're coming back to their home state, hunting the mid-season, and so on and so forth. Like, think about how much they're learning and what their arsenal looks like from a knowledge standpoint for tooling and different tactics and tricks that they can do because of what they've learned. They're just getting more so much quicker because they're putting more in. The other quote is Gary Vee. One of his employees asked him on like a Ask Gary Vee a long time ago. I'll never forget this. Gary, you have like double the life than everybody else. You have more stuff, more da-da-da-da. He goes, look, motherfucker, I work 16 hours a day. You work 8. I should have double the life. I'm putting in more. I'm getting it quicker. Like, that's fine. You put in your 8, no complaints. But if I put in 16, I'm going to get there faster. I'm going to learn more along the way. It's this kind of mixture between grind and luck. The harder you grind, the luckier you get. So I'm very interested in this concept of doing more with your season, but I'm raising a family and working a job and doing this and doing that. So it's hard.
Amen to that.
But doing the podcast, you talk to people, you pick things up, you learn. You can actually become quite a bit of a smarter hunter, but you got to put things in practice to learn for yourself.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't know. I think this is like the 3rd time I've said this on a podcast, but if you put me and Homey early season somewhere or in Ohio and big hill country or big woods, a lot of people would say, oh, yeah, I could kill for sure. I don't think we could. We would need a year or 2 to learn what the deer are doing in that area. People ask why we don't hunt out of state a lot. And we went to Missouri last year, but that was just kind of a family trip, to visit my grandparents. But we're chasing such a big deer in Illinois, and we're hunting together. So Homey's really has to kill 4 bucks, and I really have to kill 4 bucks. We have to get on 4 bucks to tag out in Illinois together as a team. So you got to think of how many opportunities you got to have to get 4 bucks in your state. And we only get 2 weeks of vacation right now. So maybe when we get more vacation, we might be able to venture out. But I honestly think if we loaded up and went to Kentucky, we wouldn't kill. We would have no idea. We could put in a hell of an effort and try, but I don't think we could get it done just right off the rip because, like you just said, we don't have that experience. We don't have that. It's a 3rd year down there, and we encountered some bucks, and we've seen this as a hot feed field, and all that compiled up to be able to be successful. And a lot of people are starting hunting, and they're wondering why they're not successful, or wondering why they're not seeing these big deer, and it's just experience. And you see one do something, and then you got to think, well, why did he do that? What's he doing? Why is he here? And like I said, we do that with doe pictures. We do that with small buck pictures. And when you start doing that with everything, then if stuff starts clicking, and when it clicks for us, it's like, man, we're dumbasses. He was here all year.
Hindsight's always 20/20, man. You learn something like this whole time. If I would have known this 2 years ago, I would have totally nailed it. That's how it works.
Yeah,
we've got a plan.
Go ahead.
I say we've got a plan this year to where it was kind of that light bulb moment last year, and this year we're gonna put that to the test and hopefully be a step ahead and have the upper hand, and hopefully it works out for us.
You got to fill your bag with your light bulbs from the previous season. That's what I've been doing. It's been getting me closer and closer. Whatever light bulbs you got from last season, put them in your bag, use them this year, and you'll just keep collecting them. And eventually, you start to get there. At least that's my perspective. And, I know there's guys that probably have had these moments a lot sooner on in their, hunting career or whatever, but it's exciting, man. The guy, Lance, had asked the question. He talked about success is either kills or mature buck sightings. For me, success is mature buck sightings just as much as it is kills. I get pretty jacked to at least know that I'm on the right track here, especially on public land, where you see 20 other guys. If I'm the only guy seeing mature bucks, I'm like, okay, well, that's the hardest part of the battle. The other part's just fine tuning like a golf swing. If you can get it on the green the first couple swings, you're in good shape. You're better than most. Now you just got to learn how to putt.
Yeah, that's the hole in our game. If you want to get close to a giant, an absolute giant, and not kill them, we're your guys. We can get you there, but that last 20 yards, man, is what we struggle on. We're always right on that fringe, and every year since we started hunting, I don't think we've had a smaller buck encounter than a 170 or better.
Jeez, but that's it. You got to risk it all to get those big ones too. You're not settling anymore. It's totally different.
Yeah, that's what we're doing this year. I don't think we've ever been more prepared for season than we have this year. Just the amount of work, cameras, knowledge from last year, running trail cameras all year, looking at the intel, light bulb after light bulb going off, and we're just getting better as hunters with the podcast. We talk to all these guys, and they say something. And then just like the other day, Homey said something like, man, we probably should just hang a stand there instead of going in there and hanging and hunting every time, because we're probably bumping that deer because we're so close to his bedding. And as a light bulb moment, yeah, you're probably right. He was there on cam, but we never seen him hunting. But to get in that area is so hard if we had one hung there already. And having a guy, having a crew that you text or a guy that you hunt with, that makes you so much better, because Homey's always challenging what I'm saying. I'm always challenging what he's saying, and it's making, both of us better hunters. But you look at the pictures online, you're like, man, this guy's been successful. If you followed me and Homey in the woods for a weekend, you'd be like, how do these guys kill anything? They're a bunch of it's just a shit show. Everything we do is right on the edge of completely messed up and getting by. We're we're tiptoeing that line of, these guys are never killing anything or they're killing a giant, and we're right there on the line.
That's crazy, dude. I love it. I get to talk to some interesting people, through podcasting, but also through some other stuff I'm doing on the business side. And I had a conversation that I was part of with Spartan Forge, which is a site that exists right now that's in beta testing where they got millions, I mean literally millions of data points on deer from collar trackers on deer, and they've created some data models and AI and all this stuff. There's like really smart software kind of guys, and he's like, it's challenged my belief system to see what the data tells me that, I've learned from experience and other hunters that have gotten it done, that the data doesn't lie. And some of these bucks don't even participate in what's called an excursion, where they're going to go around looking for a doe in the rut. And they might go out, breed the doe, and go right back to a cliffside. And then they don't leave that area again until hunting season is done. And last year where we hunt, it's bluff country in Wisconsin, the western part of the state, and I scaled a fucking cliff like 2 years ago, I think it was. It was a big mistake. It was dangerous. I honestly shouldn't have done it. I was way out of shape. I was a big giant orange blob wearing too many layers to be like, nimble. But the amount of deer sign I saw on this bluff was crazy. I'm like, I can't believe they're like freaking mountain goats. And my concept was I thought I was going to drive something towards my buddies that were, back in on the inland a little bit more on the top of the ridge. And it took me like 2 hours to scale this stupid thing. I was like dying. It was terrible. So that was a borderline crazy thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. I want to see if there's any deer on this cliff. And, if there were, I scared them off long before I ever got to where I saw their sign. But it was interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's something we're finding out too, is we hunt in farm country, but we're not hunting farm country. We're hunting different kind of terrain, and we're figuring out, like, people are like, they won't climb that hill when they can just go this way. Let's deer do whatever they want. They don't care. This stuff is absolutely brutal to walk, even with no gear on your back. You know what I mean? Those deer are just running all over it. They don't care at all. And they know exactly how to traverse it, and we got video of a buck. He could have walked, flat. He went up a 50-foot hill. It's 5 foot flat, and then down a 50-foot hill for no reason, when he could have just walked around, an extra 10 foot and been around it. But they don't care, especially when they're in that cruising phase. And we've seen that too, where bucks don't leave, with the particular buck that we are hunting this year, that we were hunting last year and had the encounter. We believe for 10 days that he was within 60, 70 acres. And he never left that area.
They don't leave, or they can sneak through. Yep.
And we did have an encounter with him. We're limited on the hunting time there. That's the biggest challenge. The season closes early. And that's why, instead of playing it safe and being scared to bump these bucks, we're just going to go in. And if we bump them, at least we're learning, you know what I mean? And if one thing I'll always believe, no matter what, if there's big deer there this year, there'll be big deer there next year, unless the pressure changes. Yep. So if we bump them this year, we're not successful, all that stuff that we learned by getting in there and trying, we'll be able to utilize next year. And, sometimes killing deer one year seems bad, like I didn't kill the buck we chased forever on my personal farm when he was a 170, and then you're all mad, you're upset, you put in so much work, and the next year you kill him as a 190. You know what I mean? And that's the same thing that happened last year. Homey almost killed a 170, and we got trail cam pictures of this deer, and we think he's in the 190s this year. So it seems bad that you didn't kill him, but now you got all this intel.
Now it's like, oh man, now's the year. I'm coming for you, buddy. That's great.
Yeah. Now you're like, okay. And we're, now we're super fired up. He's alive. He's where we thought he was. And we're game planning, and that's one thing that, like I said, that buddy, having that game plan, me and Homey will spend hours on the phone, absolute hours. Every time we're driving home from work to the kids, we're talking on the phone.
I talk to Greg
every day, and we're
the most. I know I'm like, hey buddy, what's up? He's like, what? You just talked to me, and we just geek out on shit. And then he's sending me trail cam pics, and I'm like, ooh, look at that. And it's nighttime, so it doesn't even actually fucking matter, but it's fun, man.
Right
it's
now,
just a fun thing.
The deer's in the area after hardhorn, it matters a lot. That's how we think. When we get a deer hardhorn, we're like, all right, we got a chance.
About another week, if I'm still seeing some of those bucks hard horned on that on those handful of cameras in that one particular area, then I'll breathe a little bit easier. But until then, as far as I'm concerned, this is summer range and they could be bugging out. But there is one in particular that, he was there last year. He was there the year before, hard horned. So I got to believe he's gonna be there again. But you never know. Things could happen with all the COVID stuff. I have a feeling we're gonna see record license sales, and we might see more people on our public land that we like to hunt. So time will tell. We'll see what happens.
Homie, I asked you early on, we're bringing the plane in for landing here, but, Cody, we're just going to skip yours, I think, because you're late. But
you were the dick that
I know. It was my fault, too.
Don't even pay attention to that. Let that man tell his story.
Yeah, no. Well, if you guys both got one, great. But, Ryan gets the pleasure of going first. What's your most memorable hunt, homie?
I was in 6th grade. That was the first year that my dad allowed us boys to tag along with him, and it was just to get the full experience. We've been around the shed with the deer hanging and stuff at night when they get back, but actually go out, get up early in the morning, go out and experience your first hunt. We went out in the morning, and my dad had shot at a buck, and we saw a little bit of blood, but we didn't end up finding that deer. And then he ended up shooting a doe in the morning, and I kind of got to go through that whole experience, and I actually found out how much work it is to drag a deer out of the woods. And then that evening, we went up and had lunch at camp. And that evening, everybody's at camp. There's, 18, 20 guys there. Opening day of shotgun here in Illinois. And everybody's talking about where they're going to hunt and stuff. And my dad's like, oh, hey, we're going to go down to this tree. It's called the Three Sisters. It's just got 3 trunks that come out of the ground, and that's what they call the Three Sisters. It's kind of like a landmark. And it's right off this ag field. Maybe there's a buffer strip of timber, and then there's a cliff, and the cliff's probably 30 foot tall, and then it drops down into a bottom, and then there's railroad tracks, and then that's the end of our property. And the deer are kind of funneled by that cliff and the railroad tracks. And so we're just kind of hunting that bottom there. And my dad had literally just stood up and turned around and took a pee and sat back down and hit the rattle bag, hit the grunt. And we're sitting there maybe 2 minutes more. And he hears something jump in the timber from behind us from the field. And he's on the right side of me, and he turns around his right shoulder and just sees this buck standing there, just kind of coming in off the timber or off the field. And he kind of taps my leg real quick. So me being inexperienced, I lean up to get around him because my dad's like a big dude. And I just see this deer's main beam, and then I just see a whole bunch of antlers. And this deer's 8 yards from us, has no idea we're there. My dad's got the gun laid across his lap, and he just picks it up one-handed and straight John Wayne shoots this deer. And then all hell breaks loose, and it was about the smokiest gunshot I've ever seen, too. I don't know if it was just the atmosphere at the time or the humidity or what it was, but smoke everywhere, and this deer runs off, and he goes straight down that 30-foot cliff in about 2 hops. And my dad followed him just about as fast. And then the deer gets behind some fallen down trees, and my dad takes one more shot, and the deer just drops. And I'm standing at the top of the hill because I'm too scared to go down there because I don't know what the hell's really going on. And my dad's, really freaking out, and he's like, hey, man, this deer's huge. It's going to go on the wall. And I'm like, oh, wow, we don't have any deer on the wall at home. And I was like, this must be giant. And so I go up, get the book bag and everything. We get down there, and, my dad's just wired. And he says, when we get back up to the truck, I'm going to tell everybody that I shot a spike buck. And because we had to drag it up this 30-foot cliff. And we're at the truck, and everybody's, giving my dad a hard time for shooting a spike buck down in this bottom. And then now my dad's like, no, man, I shot like an 18-pointer. And so now nobody really knows what we have down besides Dad and I. And it was a really fun time. So we went down there, and we actually had to get a tow strap that you would use for a wrecker, and we hooked it to the hitch of a 1987 GMC and dragged that buck out of the woods. And it was cool to see my dad, be there with my dad when he shot his biggest buck ever. And I think it scored 167 and 3/8, somewhere in that neighborhood. And thankfully for him, he's got somebody there to verify his story, because somebody might not believe that we shot that deer off the ground one-handed at 8 yards. So right after taking a pee. So that's my most memorable hunt.
That's a good one, dude. That's pretty cool. We're going to chop that into a beautiful story. Cody, what about you?
Man, I was getting jacked up over here. I've heard that story.
I was in it with you, man. I was like, shit.
Oh, Homey's a great storyteller, man. I'll tell you that. I don't even know how I can compete with that, man. That was so solid.
It's not a competition. It's okay.
My most memorable so far is probably the smallest deer that I've shot in 7 years. I put this ton of this work in this wagon blind that I built, and my kid was out there with me the whole time. Got stung by 1,000 wasps, more like 7, but it felt like 1,000. But we were building it, it's hot, and I was trying to talk to him about what we were going to do with it. And it's hard for him to understand. He's 4. And, the first hunt, I take him out there, wife comes out, and I got the binos in there, so he's going to every window. He's looking out, he's trying to figure out. He's saying, oh, deer are going to come out of there, Dad, or they're going to come out of here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing anything. And we're in there, and we're having, drawing playoffs with the wife. Who can draw better, my son or my wife? And I got to pick the kid every time. That. So then right at dusk, a buck comes out, and I think it's one deer, and it's our target deer for the property. And, I take a shot. He drops. The boy gets to see it all, And we go out there, we load him up. Kid gets to experience that. But the coolest part, man, I'm in the back of Homey's truck. Homey's right there. He's always there to celebrate and help out, and he's just as jacked if he killed it or I killed it or whatever. But we're in the back of the truck, and my kid looks at me and he goes, you know what, Dad? You said if we didn't go home before dark, because he was ready to go, he'd said it, and I said, we need to wait in case something comes out. He goes, we waited till dark and a buck came out, and you were right. And I was like, he's 4. If I would have learned that from just when I very first started hunting, just, hey, you got to set till pitch black. You got to set till the last shooting light, because I don't know about you guys. I started hunting young, and that last 20 minutes of dark, you're thinking, man, I got to make it all the way through the woods with a flashlight. The Sasquatch is out here, And he understands now, and for him to comprehend that, super cool. And like I said, that's the smallest buck I've killed in 7 years. There's a buck that we wanted to pass, and it just goes to show you. I told Homey in the blind, I said, I'm not going to get in the moment, my kid out there, and I'm not going to shoot a small deer. I'm not going to shoot a small buck, And I did. And I'm not upset about it at all, I called Homey super jacked. I'm like, yeah, Chaos is down. He's down out in the field. And I told him, I said, we're going to go out there, and it's going to be this buck. And it was that buck. It was a buck that I thought said it was going to be as a joke. And but in the end, wife got to be there. Kid got to be there. Homey got to be there. So it's been the coolest hunt I've been on. I've been on some cool ones, though, man, and it's hard to pick one, but I'd say that's most memorable right now.
That's cool, man. That's a good story, too. And it goes to show that it's not the size of the inches, right? It's the memory made of field that's important. That's what you count.
Yeah, it always goes back to the work I put in. That's what I want to feel. I want to work at a buck for a couple years and then get it done. Or, I put so much work in that wagon blind, and I've been talking it up about how I'm going to take them hunting out of it during shotgun season. And the first hunt, just for it all to come together, is pretty magical, really. And if I'd sat back and wouldn't have shot that buck, we wouldn't have seen anything that night. He wouldn't have seen that deer, If I didn't shoot it, he wouldn't be able to get up close. That deer was, 100 yards. He wouldn't have been able to get the full experience of what I actually do out there. If you tell your kids you're going hunting, but they don't really understand what you're doing, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's a good first experience for sure.
I would have been upset if I didn't kill it, really.
How did you, so we have listeners, you have listeners, there's some kind of overlap there, I'm sure, but get your shameless plugs in, guys. Like, tell people how they can find you, where to go subscribe on YouTube, on the podcast. Like, let's get it in here real quick and make sure people know where to go consume some of your content, because it's good.
Oh, well, we're on every social platform you can damn near be on. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter, we really like Twitter. We get a lot of engagement there. If you're into the scene of TikTok, we're also on there. Got some pretty funny content on there. We upload every podcast to YouTube. We also are rolling out some video work. Last 2 years, I think we've put out 8 videos of hunts, some of specific deer, some of kind of recapping the season. Actually have our public land video from last year coming out coming out Thursday night on YouTube, IGTV, and Facebook. Very excited about that. And then if you want to check out the podcast, pretty much everywhere where you can listen, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, you name it, we're on there.
Rock on. And it's all just Whitetail Legacy. You guys own that domain pretty well, huh?
Yep, Whitetail Legacy or Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know, their logo is super badass. It's like this gnarly buck, and there's like, the cord from the microphone's all wrapped around with the microphone dangling. It's a pretty sweet logo. Well, cool, guys. Thanks for jumping on tonight. And, Cody, thanks for scooting on. Sorry I didn't bring you on sooner because I'm an idiot, but it all worked out pretty well. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us on. Like I said, we've been trying to make it happen for a while. I'm glad I had a little break here. It's dark. I'm still at work, but whatever it takes, right? Put the time in now so you can take off in November. So
You're badass, man. Both of you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.